So the chances of you being diabetic increases dramatically. So we do keep this in mind when we usually take a history of the patient. This family history is important.
A lot of people are blaming genetics. Is that true, or can you actually change things with diet, lifestyle, exercise? And a lot of people talk about that, but reversing diabetes, doing that?
Actually, people tend to misunderstand the word genes. They think that it's a fixed thing. Once you have a particular gene and you get a particular problem, that's not true.
Great, sounds very interesting. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second topic. I've nicknamed it Food, Myths, and Metabolic Truths. So let's talk a little bit about food, Dr. Menon, because that's where a lot of the confusion starts. Now, we've seen many experts saying many things about food. There's a nutritionist around the corner on every YouTube channel. So can you just tell us what actually is true when we're talking about food?
I think you asked a very good question here, because actually people are confused. What is a healthy diet? And to tell you the truth, nobody really knows. Diet is a very personal, cultural thing which you do in different races, different cultures in different parts of the world. Every group of people have got their own way of cooking and eating. What we are asking now is it healthy enough? In today's environment, there are a lot of problems to get healthy food. The soil itself is not good enough. The processing of food has happened. Ultra-processed food is in the market. We are getting even the grains highly refined. So the nutritional content of food is now becoming a grave problem all over the world. And what we find is in India, there's a double combination of malnutrition combined with a high-carb diet in the menus. So when you're thinking of what is a healthy food, people have certain dogmas which have been carried on throughout these years without any scientific validity at all. In fact, if you look at an old textbook or a new textbook of nutrition, they use something called the food pyramid, which was invented without any scientific validity a long time ago.
And did that come from the West, or?
Yeah, it came from the US.
Okay.
And then it spread all around the world. And every nutrition student I meet keeps repeating what's said in it, where they say you have to eat a lot of whole grains, a lot of fruits and vegetables. That is the healthy part of the diet. And then you have to practically cut off saturated fat. The sad part of this advice is that Indians have stopped eating ghee and blamed it for causing heart attacks, which is not true. Saturated fat is not dangerous at all. In a recent article I read on a meta-analysis on saturated fat, it clearly said that there is absolutely no link between saturated fat and heart attacks or cardiovascular disease, which is a surprising statement to make. They also said that the American Heart Association has actually said that cholesterol is not a nutrient which we should avoid or is dangerous. Unfortunately, these things are there in black and white in all published journals, where no one seems to pick it up and the dogma seems to continue. The other aspect that's pretty confusing in South Asians is diabetics especially. They think eating ragi instead of chapati or rice is better. But the sad truth is all grains have a similar glycemic index. The glycemic index tells you how high your blood sugar goes up after eating the food. And most of them come within the 70s and 78 category, which is considered very high. And that's causing problems.
When it comes to South Asians, you know that most South Asians, typically live in a joint family system, and food is part of their culture. And most of them eat home-cooked meals. You've seen the tiffin boxes that go across Mumbai, across office workers, and how obsessed they are when eating home-cooked meals. And home-cooked for them means home-cooked equals healthy meals. What are the common mistakes that people are making, considering that they think they're eating healthy meals?
Right. We come back to what should be a healthy meal. And what we have discovered is, why do you eat food? It's basically to supply nutrients. If the nutrients are there in the system, then you don't have to supply anymore.
Well, also taste.
Yeah. That's the way the nutrient is cooked. Otherwise, when we talk about nutrition, we are talking about the 3 macronutrients that is found in every food and the micronutrients, which are the vitamins and minerals. In today's world, basically, the research on that subject is coming up, and we have realized we are evolved and we are designed in a particular way. And the amino acids from the protein, 9 of them which are there, they're called essential because the body can't make them. There are also fatty acids the body can't make. We have to eat them. They're essential fatty acids. So our food should contain that.
And you mentioned that the most underrated nutrient in the South Asian diet is protein. Now, is that because most South Asians are vegetarian? They don't like meat? Is there not enough protein? What's going on with the protein intake?
Well, protein again is defined as, do you get all the essential amino acids in the food that you're eating? To get a combination of all the amino acids, you have to eat a very diverse vegetarian meal, which includes a lot of nutrient-dense plant-based material. Unfortunately, South Asian diets are carb-based, and the proteins they expect to get is from the dals and the lentils and maybe the nuts and seeds, and a little bit of the dairy products. But they have to eat quite a lot of it.
Okay.
And if you eat a lot of these plant-based items, they also contain carbs. And a diabetic then is in a very difficult situation, because to get the adequate amount of protein, he has to eat a lot of plant-based carbs, which will make his blood sugars go out of control. In a non-vegetarian patient, this doesn't happen because they got choices. So invariably, to hit the 1 gram per kg body weight of protein that you need, a 60 kg person will need 60 grams of protein per day. To hit that number has been our challenge. In our clinic, that has been a challenge because patients refuse even to eat eggs.
That was my second question, because I think the non-vegetarian diet kind of blends in really easily with what you're saying. But for the vegetarian, strict vegetarians, and some South Asians are very, very strict. Some of them don't even eat garlic or onions, and eggs out of the question. So what advice are you giving these patients?
That's why we have formulated a special approach where we use paneer or the Indian cottage cheese a lot. And we have got soya products which can be introduced into the diet. We have to teach them this. We have to give them menus, and we got a low-carb dietitian who's specially trained for this. Of course, to get the original taste is difficult. I also got a patient of mine who's working on some flour mixes.
Okay.
He's not revealed the formula to us, but he's basically given us some samples to try out.
Okay, a bit of an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So we are trying to, do a little trial on that, and maybe after about a couple of months, I'll have some results.
Okay.
If it works. So then South Asians can go back to the traditional idli, dosa, and upma.
Okay.
And chapatis, and because the flour can be used in so many ways. And on paper, it is supposedly low carb.
Okay, great to hear. I mean, that could be something that we could post as a product for our viewers to kind of like, vegetarian viewers especially, to kind of investigate.
Yeah, only after the research is over.
Okay, cool. Still preliminary, experimental at this stage.
Exactly.
Okay, so just sticking to the protein topic, what's the impact of protein and blood sugar and metabolic rate? Because you mentioned that a lot. That's why your emphasis on protein intake is so important. Yeah. What's that relationship with, especially when it comes to diabetes?
Well, in a diabetic patient, we are going to lower his carbs. So he has to get his calories from something else. And so what we switch on is ask him to increase the protein content, of course, to the levels calculated, and then substitute healthy fat. It is a problem because most of the dogma about saturated fat is still there on the horizon. So we have to re-educate the patient on this. So once we substitute the protein content and the fat content, and then add the vegetables and the allowed fruits, it becomes a pretty healthy diet. In vegetarians, again, sources are difficult, and we are still trialing out different combinations. But in a non-veg patient, it's not a problem at all. So the principle is to increase the protein content to the requirement of your body weight, introduce the healthy fat, that's extremely important. Don't worry about saturated fat. And we also insist that you avoid seed oils and any kind of processed food.
Okay. So it's going to be a challenge for most of your patients because food and culture are so ingrained in our kind of core cultural identity in terms of who we are when we eat our food. What's one swap meal that you would recommend for people to kind of like stick to in terms of avoiding in terms of their meals? Even though if they think that it's healthy.
You see, as you asked me in the previous question about the protein and fat doesn't actually raise blood sugar. So that's the advantage. So at the same time, it helps you build your muscle mass, and the calories are provided. So instead of a sugar burning system, we become a fat burning system. Mm-hmm. And our mitochondria can do both. So this is the fact that is the scientific basis behind diets recommended, which contains more of the protein and the fat. We are looking at the energy source. We are also looking at the building blocks of the human system. And carbohydrates and sugar only provides energy. It has no function in the body otherwise. And when we still eat a lot of that throughout the day.
Great. Okay. If you want to have a nutritional plan laid out for you, I would recommend you visit diabetesreset.org. You can take a free quiz there, and your first consultation is free, doctor. So absolutely free. So you can get a free nutritional plan and food plan and get started on that. The next topic I want to talk about is deficiencies. So effectively what this is about, vitamins and nutrients missing from our diet. So your research has showed that 90% of South Asians are low in vitamin D, and half of them are low in B12. Why is this happening with your patients?
Well, roughly you got the numbers right, but all our tests on our patients, that's all I can discuss about.
Yeah,
they're all South Asians, and they're all on basically a vegetarian diet.
Okay,
and B12 is easily available in non-veg foods.
Right. Okay.
For a vegetarian, he has to eat a lot of dairy products, where a little bit of B12 is available, but the amount he has to eat is quite a lot. Now, I found that culturally we're not really cooking our food that way. Mm-hmm. Most of our breakfast, lunch, and dinners are carbohydrate based, and the dals are used, just to make it palatable, because rice is practically not palatable to eat. Chapatis are not really palatable to eat. So how to get the required amount of B12 is an issue with vegetarians who are eating a poor diet anyway. And the government policy is to, subsidize on rice and subsidize on sugar and subsidize on seed oils or palm oil. None of it provides the B12. In fact, the government of India had a problem with how to feed millions of people a healthy plant-based diet because protein was missing. So in their school meals, they introduced eggs. That was the only shortcut they found, which was objected to by a lot of people who said, they wouldn't like to eat eggs because it's of non-veg origin. We got this cultural divide, and we got these issues of tradition that interferes with nutrition. So in our patients who can afford, they can protein supplement. And like I said, we are trying out soya and paneer as a substitute, but they're expensive too. But they're less expensive than the medications the patients buy. So we have to find a middle ground where they may need some medications, and they may, reduce or restrict their carbs as much as possible. And it's not that they may not reverse their diabetes, but they become quite well controlled.
So you're recommending supplements?
For a pure vegetarian, if the blood tests show that they are not hitting the normal levels, we have to supplement them.
Okay.
And as far as vitamin D is concerned, that's something which we think we shouldn't bother about because we are living in a sunny country. But to produce vitamin D, you have to expose at least 20% of your skin to direct sunlight, which most of us don't do. And urban dwellers and people who are sedentary and living inside their houses, most of the women don't go out that much. And even if they do, they are covered up. They don't get the required sunlight. So vitamin D deficiency has been recognized as a major issue in India, even by ICMR.
So let's talk a little bit more about your clinic, your lifestyle medical clinic that you've got set up. What's so different about it that a typical doctor is not doing?
Well, you'll be surprised to know that a typical doctor gets only about 10 minutes with a patient.
Right.
Our OPD itself sometimes runs to 500 patients per day.
Wow, that's a large number.
Yes. So each doctor has to deal with 50 to 60 or 70 patients in one session. And none of the lifestyle principles can be applied in these cases because the doctor doesn't have time. He has just time enough to medicate, which is why the lifestyle clinic was started. In our clinic, we give them appointments, and since it's not an acute problem, it's a chronic condition, we got time on our hands. And when they come to us, we do a complete workup. We do the complete history workup, including the family history, and then we got a separate diet questionnaire that tells us exactly what the patient is eating. And our nutritionist then looks into it and calculates, what is missing. That gives an idea. Beyond that, our general workup includes, what kind of lifestyle he's leading, whether he's exercising or whether he's capable of exercising, and other factors like stress and sleep. Intermittent fasting is part of the schedule, which most patients don't do. So the workup takes educating these patients, counseling them, calling their families in, and then we have the blood investigations, which are slightly different from the standard ones which we do anyway. We work up the patient to find out whether the patient has metabolic syndrome. We also diagnose insulin resistance by doing the HOMA-IR test, which includes fasting insulin. And we got a special insulin test called the Kraft test, which we use on selected patients. So our workup sort of differs from what a standard doctor would do because he is only interested in a patient after the patient becomes diabetic. While we are interested in the pre-diabetics and the patients with early metabolic syndrome.
I mean, if you're saying 10 minutes, what you just talked about definitely takes more than 10 minutes. It takes several consultations.
Yeah, several half-an-hour consultations.
And a consolidated effort from not only the individual, but the individual's partner, the family members, and the whole system, to be honest.
And most of the counseling and nutritional advice is done by a dietitian who's specially trained for that. And we got other support people and support staff. We also use an exercise physiotherapist who generally modulates the exercise because a lot of people have never exercised in their lives and many of them, can't. So we have to modify the exercises. We also got a yoga clinic which actually looks after their stress issues.
Interesting.
And they teach them meditation and yoga for relaxation.
Okay, so 360 treatment really, because you're not just talking about the diabetes reset, you're talking about the complete health of the patient.
It's a very holistic approach.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, let's move on to our next section, which I've titled Stress, Sleep, and What's Happening Inside. So, work stress, husband stress, wife stress, wider family pressure, it all kind of adds up. So, can stress increase diabetes?